or started afresh. "Mr. Weiner," he said, "I am authorized to offer you 6 times." "6 times," he echoed impressively, "the amount of your original investment. This is an amazing return." If it was worth it to him, it was worth it to me. "I will take immediate delivery," I repeated firmly. "And no brokerage fees involved?" he added, as one making an unbelievable concession. I shook my head. "Mr. Weiner," he said, "I have been empowered to make you an incredible tender for your stock. Not only will the board of directors of Consolidated Pemmican return to you 6 times the amount of your investment, but they will assign to you, over and above this price, 49% of the company's voting stock. It is a magnificent and unparalleled bid, and I sincerely advise you to take it." I pressed my palms into the back of the chair. I, Albert Weiner, was a capitalist. The money involved already seemed negligible, for it was a mere matter of a few $1,000s, but to own what amounted to a controlling interest, even in a defunct or somnolent corporation, made me an important person. Only a reflex made me gasp, "I will take immediate delivery." The broker dropped his hands against his thighs. "Mr. Weiner, you are an acute man. Mr. Weiner, I must confess the truth. You have bought more shares of Consolidated Pemmican than there are in existence. You not only own the firm lock, stock, and barrel, but you owe yourself money." He gave a weak laugh. "Above and beyond this, Mr. Weiner, through an unfortunate series of events, due to the confusion of the times, without it such an absurd situation would never have occurred, several people, our own firm, our New York correspondents, and the present heads of Consolidated Pemmican, are liable to prosecution by the Securities Exchange Commission. We can only throw ourselves on your mercy." I waved this aside magnanimously. "Where is my property located?" "Well, I believe Consolidated Pemmican has an office in New York." "Yes, but the factory, the works, where is the product made?" "Strictly speaking, I understand active operations ceased back in 1919. However, there is a plant somewhere in New Jersey, I think. I'll look it up for you." My dream of wealth began fading as the whole situation became clear, and suspicions implicit in the peculiar behavior of the stock were confirmed. The corporation had evidently fallen into the hands of unscrupulous promoters, who manipulated for the small but steady "take" its fluctuations on the market afforded. Without attempting to operate the factory, my reasoning ran, they had taken advantage of the stock's low price to double whatever they cared to invest, twice yearly. It was a neat and well-shaped little racket, and discovery, as the broker admitted, would have exposed them to legal action. Only my recklessness with the checks from the Weekly Ruminant and the Honeycomb had broken the routine. But they had offered me several $1,000s, evidently in cold cash. Defunct or not, then, the business was presumably worth at least that. And if they had employed the stock to maintain some sort of income, why, I could certainly learn to do the same. I was an independent man, after all. Except for the slightly embarrassing detail of being without current funds, I was also free of LaFacecy and the Daily Intelligencer. "Mr. Blank," I said, "I need some money for immediate expenses." "I knew you'd see things in a sensible light, Weiner. I'll have your check in a minute." "You misunderstand me. I have no intention of giving up any part of Consolidated Pemmican." "Ah?" "No." He looked at me intently. "Mr. Weiner, I am not a wealthy man. Above and beyond that, since this grass business started, I assure you, any common laborer has made more money than I. Any common laborer," he repeated sadly. "Oh, I only need about $1,000 for immediate outlays. Just write me a check for that much, like a good fellow." "Mr. Weiner, how can we be sure you won't call upon us again for more, expense money?" I drew myself up indignantly. Mr. Blank, no one has ever questioned my integrity before. When I say $1,000 is all the expense money I require, why, it is all the expense money I require. To doubt it is to insult me." "Ah," he said. "Ah," I agreed. Reluctantly, he wrote the check and handed it to me. Then, more amicably, we settled the details of the stock transfer, and he gave me the location of my property. I went back to the Intelligencer office with the springy step of a man who acknowledges no master. In my mind, I prepared a triumph. I would wait, even if it took days, for the first bullying word from LaFacecy, and then I would magnificently fling my resignation in his face. When the grass was thought to be invincible, Miss Frances, as the discoverer of the compound which started it on its course, was the recipient of a universal, if grudging, respect. Those whom the grass had made homeless hated her, and would have overcome their natural feeling of protection towards a woman sufficiently to lynch her if they could. Men like Senator Jones instinctively disliked her. Others, like Dr. Johnson, detested her. But no one thought of her lightly, even when they glibly coupled the word nut with her name. When it was found the salt band worked, Miss Frances immediately became the butt of all the ridicule and contumely which could be heaped upon her head. What could you expect of a woman who meddled with things outside her province? Since she had asserted the grass would absorb everything, its failure to absorb the salt proved beyond all doubt she was an ignoramus, a dangerous charlatan, and a crazy woman, better locked up, who had destroyed Southern California to her own obscure benefit. The victory over the grass became a victory over Miss Frances. Of the ordinary gum-chewing, movie-going man in the street over the pretentious highbrow. She was ignominiously ejected from her chicken house laboratory on the ground that it was more needed for its original use, and she was jeered at in every vehicle of public expression. In spite of my natural chivalry, I cannot say I pitied her in her fall, which she took with an unbecoming humility, amounting to arrogance. It was amazing how quickly viewpoints returned to an apparent normality as soon as the grass stopped at the salt band. That it still existed, in undisputed possession of nearly all Southern California, after dispersing and scattering millions of people all over the country, disturbing by its very being a large part of the national economy, was only something read in newspapers, an accepted fact, to be pushed into the farthest background of awareness now the immediate threat was gone. The Salt Patrol, vigilant for erosions or leachings, a select corps, was alert night and day to keep the saline wall intact. The general attitude, if it concerned itself at all with the events of the past half-year, looked upon it merely as one of those setbacks periodically afflicting the country, like depressions, epidemics, floods, earthquakes, or other man-made or natural misfortunes. The United States had been a great nation when Los Angeles was a pueblo of 5,000 people. The movies could set up business elsewhere. Iowans find another spot for senescence. The country go on much as usual. One of the first results of the defeat of the grass was the building, almost overnight it seemed, of a great city on the east bank of the Salton Sea. Displaced realtors from the metropolis found the surrounding mountains ideally suited for subdivision, and laid out romantically named suburbs, large enough to contain the entire population of California before the site of the city had been completely surveyed. Beyond their claims, the memorial parks, columbariums, homes of eternal rest, and Elysian lawns offered choice lots, with a special discount on caskets, on the installment plan. Magnificent brochures were printed. A skeletal biographical dictionary, $5 for notice, $50 for a portrait, planned. Advertisements in leading magazines urged the migration of industry. Contented labor and all local taxes remitted for 10 years. These essential preliminaries accomplished, the city itself was laid out, water mains installed, and paving and grading begun. It was no great feat to divert the now aimless Colorado River aqueduct to the site, nor to erect thousands of prefabricated houses. The climate was declared to be unequaled, salubrious, equable, pleasant, and bracing. Factories were erected, airports laid out, hospitals, prisons, and insane asylums built. The Imperial and